Okay.
All set?
All set.
All right, so I am going to do a presentation on giving a pitch on and telling the story of conservation New Hampshire. So how I do it, I usually start with some sort of self-depreciation, get to know the speaker a bit. The one I use routinely pretty much focuses around kind of three things that I try to tell most people about me. The first is that I'm a Republican. It sort of ties into the organization's bipartisanship. The second one is that I'm a lobbyist. Whether or not they like that, it's part of it, and they can kind of laugh or chuckle. And then the third one I always throw in is I'm a Yankees fan. That usually gets everybody booing, but it kind of loosens up the crowd, and it gets them to know a little bit something about me, which is unique about the organization. So if you're meeting with the donor, a good way to start would be if you're a lawyer, making a lawyer joke about how normally you sit behind the desk every day pushing paper, but here at this organization you get to do something different. But make it up. It's a personal story. Then I tell a personal story normally about how I got involved with the organization. So for a board member, that's a perfect pitch. People get drawn in when you tell them why you're here, other than what you want from them. And so if you start your sort of conversation with something about you that they're not going to know, and then the second one would be why you're here. So my story, which most of you have probably heard, is that I was a political hack running Republican campaigns. Stopped doing that. I went to work at the Red Cross raising money for a good cause, and this organization was just started. I was driving home from work, and I had a driveway moment in my car, which is a story about this organization that was just started, who were using the environment to influence politics. Their target was my favorite politician, Craig Benson, who the organization came out and gave him a report card with a D- or a C-, whatever it was, and now it's grade inflation. And so I sat in my driveway listening to the story, thinking how great it was. So I went into the house and I went to my computer, found them online, gave him a check for $100 some odd, and then got recruited onto the board and eventually became the executive director. So that's a good story. It kind of places me in my place in time with the organization. Board members, again, is really easy. You shouldn't need a script. You should be able to tell people why you are part of the organization. And the more personal it is, the better, and the more engaging it will be to the donor. So there you go. Those are two easy steps. You're not actually talking about anything the organization's done, but you've done a good setup. So then normally I go into a bit of, so what do we do, right? So you probably never heard of Conservation New Hampshire before, but we're involved in all the things that have to do with the environment that you do care about or do read about. And so this is a bit nuanced, and it depends on what audience you're talking to or what you think the donor cares about. Since I'm a dork, I go into policy matters. Usually I'll talk about some of the legislative efforts that we've been undergoing, how the politics in the State House has changed, but conservation issues, our job is to make them a top priority for our elected officials, and so we do a lot of lobbying and a lot of convening with the other environmental advocates. I usually stress that our job isn't to make policy, and our job isn't to be the policy experts. Our job is to understand the politics and to connect the politicians with the policy experts, and to connect those and to move issues through the process. And then and this is kind of where board members may get a bit uncomfortable because they may not know the ins and outs of policy, which is why you have a staff member with you who can talk about what the organization has done on things like RGGI or RPS or state parks. And really for a board member, in my view, this is where your job ends. So you go and you tell your story why you're there. You tell your story about why the organization is important. Maybe you have a quick anecdote that you want to share about things that you've seen that you've been impressed by. An easy one is that the board spoke about the need to bring businesses into the organization and to bring them to the State House. And we, as an organization, brought 140 businesses onto a sign-on letter. That's pretty impressive. it's a physical thing that you could ask Susie to bring, or you can point them to our website, the actual newspaper ad with those businesses, and you can just talk about to you as a board member, you as a business owner, you as someone involved. This is an exciting opportunity, exciting challenge, something great the organization has done that no other organization has done. Again, you're not necessarily trying to pitch them on a specific thing that we do, but you're trying to give them a picture of what the organization's about. And what we're about is convening, advocacy, and policy. And then either ask questions, or the donor is going to take you somewhere. They're going to ask you a specific question. If they start asking you questions about open space, your answer is going to be a lot different than if they ask you a question about how much the budget is. So again, your job as a board member is to introduce the organization, introduce yourself, and then either let the staff who are there do the talking, or if you're on your own visit, just get yourself comfortable enough with a few stories that the organization has done, which are out there. I mean, they're all on the website. We spent a lot of time talking about the things that we do, so putting together a very short snippet of what the organization's about, and whatever appeals to you. I mean, it could be our bipartisanship, and you could tell a story about how at our legislative breakfast we've had the governor, who's a Democrat, we've had Senate presidents of both parties, we've had the House Majority Leader come speak. If that's something that you think will appeal to the donor, then go on the bipartisan. If you think energy issues are going to appeal to the donor, go into that. If elections are going to appeal to the donor, we have a lot of electoral stories from endorsing people like Bob O'Dell and Jeannie Forrester, and going door to door in the Lakes region in support of Jeannie Forrester. Rick Russman always tells a story about Bev Hollingworth, who was an executive counselor, who has said that she wouldn't have gotten elected unless it was for this organization. So it's imperative that you pull these stories out, but you make them your own. You don't necessarily have to say this organization is great because we do something. You should probably say, I'm impressed, I'm on the board of this organization because it does this. And it can be one aspect, which sort of connects all the dots. So there you go.